Hello, cyberspace astronauts. Are you ready to be entertained with pointless jibber-jabber and senseless small talk? If so, you have come to the right place. It's the Todd Cook Show, starring Todd Cook, featuring Todd Cook, and with special guest, Todd Cook. Now broadcasting from his garage, here is Todd Cook.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Hi there. How you doing? Welcome to the Todd Cook Show. I am Todd Cook, and it is a thrill that you have decided to join me on my very first podcast. We're coming to you right from Wichita, Kansas, in my garage, and like I said, I'm glad you've decided to join me. And first thing first, that was my voice there in the introduction. It's kind of not the way I wanted it to happen, but I don't have any voiceover guy just yet, so that is my voice on the introduction there. And I do have a bit of an ego, but my ego is not so big that I don't understand that having my own voice introducing myself is kind of tacky. So I hope that someday soon, actually maybe possibly by the next episode, but within the next 2 or 3 episodes, I do plan on having somebody else doing the voiceover work. I've got somebody in mind. He said he would do it. It's just a matter of time to be able to get him into the studio or bring the studio to him, whatever I need to do so that he will be able to do the voiceover work for me. He will not only be doing the introductions, but he'll be doing some other stuff. It should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to getting him in here. But for now, that was me introducing myself. Like I said, I am Todd Cook, and this is a podcast. And a lot of you out there might not have heard of the word podcast before. A lot of you probably have. And I was going to spend a lot of time trying to explain to everybody what a podcast is, but I decided not to. And the reason for that is you are here, you found the show, you're listening to the show, and this is a podcast. So if you don't know what a podcast is right now, you will by the time this show is over. But basically, a podcast is it's like a talk radio show, except for it's done online over the internet instead of over the airwaves. And it's been around for quite a while. There's a lot of people that do it, probably hundreds of thousands of millions of people that do podcasts nowadays. It caught on a few years back, and there's just a ton of people that do it now. But I actually, if I might brag just a little bit, I am kind of a pioneer of the podcasting phenomenon that's happened recently. And let me explain that. Like I said, it's kind of a recent trend that the internet is being used in this manner for people to do these podcasts. But I did a podcast back in the year 2001. Now, that's 11 years ago, and with the way that the internet has progressed over the recent years, 11 years is a long time in internet years. And the way that I started doing this back 11 years ago in 2001 was that I listened to a lot of talk radio, and there was a couple in particular that would broadcast their show live on the airwaves through the radio, and then after their show aired, they would upload that show to the internet so people like me or you or anybody else could listen to their show anytime you wanted to. So you didn't have to tune in to WMRP 98.7 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to listen to your show that you want to listen to. You could just log onto the internet at any point and listen to that show. You'd be a little late, but it wouldn't bother me that much. If I listened to it the next day instead of when it originally aired. It's no different than TV shows. They're not live. So it didn't bother me that much. And at some point I remember thinking, wait a minute. If they can upload something onto the internet and let somebody listen to it any time they want to, why can't I do that? I don't even have to have a radio show. Why go through radio first and broadcast it through the airwaves and then put it online? Why not just put it online from the very beginning? And so that's what I did back in 2001. And so I like to, I was joking to say that I was a pioneer because I really wasn't. To be a pioneer of anything, you'd have to have somewhat of a significant impact on the industry, and my show did not at all. Although I got in on podcasting, and it wasn't even called podcasting back then. I don't think that word had yet been invented. But yeah, in 2001, I called it internet radio, and I'm sure I wasn't the first to do it, but I was in on it very early on, or at least made an attempt, but I did not have a big enough impact to really call myself a pioneer. I mean, the impact I had was, maybe the impact of like a gnat on the grill of a 16-wheeler or a 18-wheeler. Why did I say 16-wheeler? How many wheels does a 18-wheeler have? Probably 18 wheels. But anyway, it wasn't very impactful at all. But I couldn't get much of an audience. It was kind of hard. The ones that were doing it back then and the ones that are doing it now even, in most cases, those people either had a hit radio show, a nationally syndicated radio show, and then they switched to podcasting, or they had some kind of a national following first and then went to podcasting. You'll find a lot of comedians. It's very common for comedians to have a podcast as well. You can look up any name of your favorite comedian, and 90% chance they're going to have their own podcast. The exceptions to that are ones that are not real popular yet, and they don't have a real good following yet, are those that have an exceptional following and are extremely popular, and maybe have already had a hit TV show or movies as well, and so they don't really feel the need to market themselves via a podcast. But it's very common for comedians to have a podcast. The biggest name in podcasting right now, or at least one of the biggest ones, is Adam Carolla. But like I said, he was on the radio for years before he started a podcast, and had a couple hit TV shows. And that's generally the way it happens. You build up an audience first, and then you start the podcast. But I now, and even back then, did not have a following at all, and was trying to start a podcast all on my own. And back then in 2001, there wasn't even Facebook or Twitter. I'm not even sure YouTube was around. So it was very difficult to get a following, and I was unable to do that. I didn't have a real good following for very long. And so it didn't last very long. But that show also was very different than what I'm going to do now. And this is actually the second incarnation of the Todd Cook Show, because back in 2006, I started another one. The first one was totally different, but what I started back in 2000, or actually I guess it's 2009, what I started back then was actually pretty close to what I'm going to be doing with this show. But even back then, Facebook wasn't quite as big, I don't think, and I don't think Twitter even existed yet, and some of the other social media outlets were not there yet. And I was working 2 jobs, and starting a new family, and so that one didn't last. And I didn't have the technology either. I remember back in 2001, I was actually using dial-up to try to upload my shows, and I had no technology whatsoever. I was behind the times back in 2001, and so here in 2012, I'm still behind the times, but I'm enough caught up to times that I've got some technology here that I'm able to do this a lot easier and make it sound better and more professional. But so here it is. This is the Todd Cook Show. I plan on doing probably a half-hour show once a week. If people start listening to it, the more they listen to it, the more shows I'll do. Maybe I'll go to an hour once a week, and then maybe an hour twice a week, and then maybe, who knows, if I can make a go at it, I'll do a show, once a day or something, and through Facebook and other means, I'm hoping to be able to find a way to grow this podcast, and if anything else, just to do it for fun, or maybe, who knows, if there's a radio guy out there, maybe a program director for a radio station out there who someday might listen to this and say, I like that guy. I want to get him on my radio station right now, Sunday mornings, 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., and they'll come looking for me, the Todd Cook Show, and try to put me on their airwaves. And one last thing that I'll say here before I take a small break, I even got fake commercials lined up. I'm going to play you a fake commercial here very shortly, and you'll see, once you hear it, you'll understand what I mean by fake commercial. But one thing I'll say is that the name Todd Cook, that's not my real name. My real name is John North. I have no problem people knowing that. This is kind of an alter ego that I set up. The reason being, I'm paying tribute to a couple friends of mine that died back in 2003 and 2004. One's first name was Todd, the other's last name was Cook. So I put those together as Todd Cook, and to pay tribute to those guys. That's what I'm going to use for this show. And also, it's good to be anonymous when you're doing a show like that. And any kind of a radio DJ type of personnel, they usually like to change their names a little bit. So, but anyway, it's the Todd Cook Show. This is the first episode of the second incarnation. If that makes any sense to you whatsoever, I'm going to take a short break and come back and tell you a little bit more about what this show is going to be about. But for right now, I'm going to take a short little break here and do my fake commercial. And I just pushed the wrong button already. I knew I would do that eventually, but I'm going to try to push the right button. Here it comes right now, and you are listening to the Todd Cook Show. I will be right back. Hi, folks. It's me, Todd Cook, and boy, do I have a deal for you. Do you have a business or a website, or maybe just an event that you want to promote, but you don't have the money to invest? Well, why not try to accomplish that right here on the Todd Cook Show? Free of charge. That's right. You can run an ad right here on this podcast free of charge. However, once the Todd Cook Show starts to pick up more and more listeners, the free offer will expire. So take advantage now. All you have to do is send your recorded commercial, which is 30 seconds or less, to me at this email address, thetoddcookshow@gmail.com. That's thetoddcookshow@gmail.com, and I will play it as time allows. So send me that commercial now and help the Todd Cook Show, and the Todd Cook Show will help you. Okay, I am back, and now you know exactly what I meant by a fake commercial. That was a fake commercial. It was not a real commercial. It was a fake commercial, but someday I wouldn't mind. I'd really like to actually have the opportunity to run some commercials for some local businesses or for people out there who might have an event that they want to promote, whatever the case might be. Someday I'd like to be able to do that. And then also with this new technology and the new setup I got here, it's going to take me a while to learn how to push all the buttons at the right time. As you can see, I already pushed. I practiced earlier, but I messed up my very first button push. So I'm hoping to get through the rest of this show without messing up any buttons. But one of the main issues is you're going to hear with the technology that I have here is that the volume levels of my voice and the music might go up and down from times. My voice might be loud at one time and not loud enough at other times. The music might be too loud or not loud enough. You know, who knows? I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, but I think it's going to be quality enough. And as time goes on, I know I'm going to get better. And that's one of the best things about listening to this show is that if you like it now, you're definitely going to like it even more. The farther down the road we go, the more shows I do, the better I'm going to get, the better the show's going to sound. And like I said, I got some other people that are going to help me out with some voiceover work, and I'm hoping for some other things. And that's what I want to talk about right now is the music that I'm playing for this episode currently is I just got from a website, and I forgot to write down the web address. And if I try to look it up right now on my laptop is where all the sound effects are coming from, the music, the intro music, and the other stuff. It's all coming from my laptop. And if I try to look it up right now from my laptop, I'm afraid I'll screw up all the sounds. So sorry, I forgot the name of the website, but I was going to give them a little bit of a plug because that's how they make their living, I think. They put all these sound effects out there on their website, and people use them. And they actually said on their website, use this for whatever reason you want to, for your commercials on the radio, I believe they even used the word for your podcast. And they said just try to give us credit. And so other people will come through their website, and they get advertisements and stuff on there, so they make money. So I will make sure the next episode of the Todd Cook Show, I will give you the web address of where I got all these sound effects and everything, so to be able to give them a little plug. All right, so now let me tell you a little bit more about what the Todd Cook Show is going to be about, or actually I should say what it's not going to be about. There are a lot of different talk shows out there, radio talk shows. They've been around for a long time, and one of the most common formats for radio talk is politics. And here at the Todd Cook Show, we're not going to talk about politics. I promise you, we are not going to talk about politics. Now, of course, if there's some really huge political event that comes up, I will give it a mention depending on how important it is. Some kind of a tragedy or something like that. Obviously, I will at least mention it. It would be disrespectful not to. But politics is really off the table. There's that saying that's been around for years. You never talk about politics or religion. And I think that's a great place to start. Not for this show. I don't like it when it's on the radio. It just becomes divisive, and forget right-wing, left-wing, conservative, liberal. Doesn't matter to me. One of the main reasons I don't like it is that it becomes very, very repetitive. If there's nothing new to talk about, they just keep repeating the same stories over and over. And so forget it. No politics on this show. Another common topic that radio shows will talk about is pop culture. They'll talk about current events, things that are happening now in entertainment or movies or whatever it might be. Different musical artists that have gotten another DUI, or another actor that got another DUI, or whatever the case might be, who's in rehab, who's out of rehab. I'm not going to deal with any of that. There are a million places that you can get that kind of talk from. TV shows, TMZ, websites, podcasts. It seems like every podcast I listen to, if there's some celebrity that gets in trouble, you'll hear one, just a radio talk show will talk about it, and then another podcast will talk about it, and then another radio show will talk about it, a TV show will talk about it, and the next thing you know, you've heard so much of the same story about this celebrity being rehashed over and over and over again that when I'm listening to it, I'll just shut the radio off or take my headphones off or shut down my computer or whatever it is. I just get tired of hearing about it. I don't care about Lindsay Lohan. I don't care about all these TV shows, these reality shows. I don't care. If I did care, I would watch the show, and thus I don't need to listen to somebody on the radio or on a podcast tell me about that show. I mean, seriously, if I wanted to know about it, I just watch it. And then if I did watch it, I don't need you to tell me again about what happened on it. It just drives me insane. I love listening to talk radio. I love listening to podcasts. There's a half a dozen of them that I listen to on a regular basis. And whenever they start talking about celebrities and whenever they start talking about pop culture, I just want to stop listening. I'll turn the volume down or take my headphones out or something. It drives me insane. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of people that are interested in that sort of stuff, but I'm not. I'm not going to talk about that sort of stuff on the Todd Cook Show. And another thing I won't talk about is sports. As hard as it is for me to believe, there are some people out there that don't like football. I don't get it. Now, earlier when I was talking about not talking about politics, there's probably some people out there saying, I don't understand how you don't find politics interesting. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. I love me some football. Go Bears. But some people out there are not Bears fans, especially in this part of the country. But there's some people that don't even like football. And once again, if there's not a lot of stories, if there's nothing new going on in the sports world, you'll hear the same story over and over, and it just gets old after a while. So-and-so did steroids, and then you got a podcast, you got a talk show, a TV show, ESPN, talking about that same event over and over and over and over again. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about pop culture. I'm not going to talk about sports. One thing I will talk about is things like my son's diarrhea. Yeah, my son's got diarrhea. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in just a moment. But first, actually, I might not have time for that. We're already 20 minutes into the show already, and it's only going to be a half hour, so I might have to move along here really quick. I might have to save the diarrhea story for the next episode. I'm sure you're all on pins and needles waiting for that. There's nothing better than talking about diarrhea, especially from a 2-year-old who seems to think that the noises that are coming from his diaper makes him laugh. But then when we're changing his diaper, the laughing stops pretty quickly. But anyway, one other thing before I talk about that, if I have time to, I will later. But if not, I'll save it for the next show. But another thing I definitely want to do on the Todd Cook Show is I want to feature some local musical artists. I want to play some music by local artists here in the Wichita area. Or it doesn't even have to be local. If it's somebody I know, or an amateur from another part of the country, or whatever the case might be, I want to play some music by amateur, preferably local artists here on the Todd Cook Show. And I'm going to start that right now. And it just so happens that there's a band that here in Wichita that I think might be the best band I've ever heard. Now, I'm a little biased because I'm in the band. But, and once again, you know, what kind of a good band member would I be if I had a podcast and didn't try to promote my band just a little bit? But I probably won't do my band too often on here. I'll try to look for other artists or bands to do. But right now, I don't have anybody else lined up. So I'm going to play you a song by my band. This is a song I wrote. It's by the band we call ourselves Good and Greasy. Check us out on Facebook sometime. Here's a little song I wrote. Local band, my band, called Good and Greasy. The song's called Hey You.
I'm from Wichita, and you're not as smart as you think you are. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and I don't really care if you don't ever understand. You say that Kansas is a flyover state. It's a place that you have never been. But have you ever asked yourself who built that jet you're flying in? I'm from Wichita, and you're not as smart as you think you are. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and I don't really care if you don't ever understand. Celebrities, they seem so proud of their origin and fame. But I've seen these people on my TV. They should not be proud, they should all be ashamed. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and you're not as smart as you think you are. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and I don't really care if you don't ever understand. They're telling us how to live our lives, but why should I ever listen to them when they don't know the difference between truth or lies? Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and you're not as smart as you think you are. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and I don't really care if you don't ever understand. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and you're not as smart as you think you are. Hey you, I'm from Wichita, and I don't really care if you don't ever understand. No, I don't really care if you don't ever understand.
All right, that was Good and Greasy with Hey You. A little shameless self-promotion by me for my band there. But I'm not going to play Good and Greasy too often because I'm not that selfish. And actually, I'd much rather play other bands, but this being the first episode, I haven't got the word around too much, but there's other musical artists out there that I know, and I'm going to be getting in contact with you soon and asking for permission to play some of your stuff. I'm pretty sure you won't mind. Even if I don't get permission, I might just go ahead and play it, and you can stick your lawyers on me if you want to, but as long as it's original content, I don't think there's going to be any issue there whatsoever, and I'll help you guys promote your stuff, and I'm sure you'll help Good and Greasy promote our stuff. But enough about that. I guess the last thing, I don't have much time left. There's less than 5 minutes here, so I'll just tell you, me and my wife did a little last-minute Christmas shopping today, and I was in a good mood all day. I was singing in the shower. I was singing while I was doing dishes, and I was singing as we were driving our car towards, the shopping centers that we were going to, the places that we were heading towards, in the car singing along. But somewhere something happened during the experience. I stopped singing pretty quick. There was no one specific thing. All I know is I didn't sing one note on the way home. I was just tired. And one of the main things that we wanted to get was just some gloves for my 6-year-old son. Just some simple gloves for my son. Went to 3 places, could not find any gloves his size, except for the cloth ones that are, made out of, thread and yarn or whatever, that as soon as he picks up one snowball, they get wet and his hands start freezing off. And by the way, a lot of you ladies out there might not understand this, and I remember my mom did not understand this when I was little. You can't put those kind of gloves on a 6-year-old because when there's snow on the ground, because that 6-year-old boy has to throw snowballs. He does not have a choice. He cannot go outside, look at the snow, and just say, no, I'm not going to throw snowballs. I'm just not going to do it. He has no choice. It is just as built-in, ingrained into his brain as any other instinct that he might have. And my son is no different. He has to throw snowballs. And we had some of those gloves, they grow so quick. I think we had some better gloves at one point, and his hands grew out of them, or he lost them at school. Who knows? So we went to go out and get some better gloves, because the ones he had were those cloth ones, and the few times that he tried to throw snowballs with them, with the little bit of snow we had, they got wet, and his hands were cold, and he was complaining. But trying to find gloves that are good for throwing snowballs, you can't use mittens. You got to have the 5 fingers, and they got to be waterproof, and his hands are, for a 6-year-old, they're pretty small. We found all kinds of gloves, but they were too big for him. We ended up buying some that were too big. We went to a bunch of different stores, and I got wore out. And like I said, you can ask my wife, I was singing songs in the car on the way to the stores, did not sing one note on the way home. And they were playing some songs I like too. And that's how much shopping can take out of us men. I mean, we can do a lot of other jobs. We can mow the yard and do yard work and other physical manual labor. But you take us shopping, and it's like you might as well put us out in the sun and make us work hard for 3 hours in 100-degree temperature. It's no different than going to Walmart and Burlington Coat Factory and wherever the heck else we went. There's no difference. It just takes it all out of us, and we start to peter out. And then we went to Dillon's, and I'm going to end the show on this. The show is coming to an end. Looks like we're at almost 29 minutes here, so I'm going to end the show here. But we went to Dillon's, and just a quick note to Dillon's. I know you like to put those the sample trays out there, and customers love it too. There's nothing that makes me more excited that can help me out when I'm shopping than when I see one of those trays out there, and I start heading towards it. And that happened today, just a few hours ago. We're at Dillon's. My wife is getting some food from the Chinese deli, and by the way, after shopping like that, we're heading home, and I was planning on, earlier as I was on the way there, as I was singing and everything, I was like, all right, we'll get this done. I'll go home. I'll cook some supper. We'll make some supper together, and we'll eat supper and have a good night. But after all the shopping, I went home. On the drive home, I was like, no, nobody's going to cook tonight. I'm not going to cook. She wasn't going to cook, so we had to stop and get some food. And as she's at the Chinese deli there in Dillon's, I look over and I see one of those food trays, one of those sample trays. And I was like, and I'm starving by this point. I'm hungry. And once again, my voice's levels are dropping off. I'm going to try to turn it up there a little bit. But I see the food tray there, and oh boy, I'm hungry. And as I'm walking towards it, I can see a little white, something in there white. It looks like cheese. And so I'm like, I like cheese. All right, maybe it's pepper jack, my favorite. I start walking a little closer, and I get 5 feet from the tray, and I realize it's empty. Whatever I saw on that, the little white speck must have just been a reflection of the light from the ceiling or something. The tray's empty. Dillons, how can you do that to me? If you run out of samples, take the trays away. I went after that tray thinking I was going to get a good treat, and I got nothing instead. It's not fair. I used to work at Dillons, but I don't know if I was ever there at a time when they put the trays out or take them away. I was there later at night. But take those trays away, because that's just very depressing to get your hopes up that you're going to get a piece of cheese and then get up there and just be shut out. And then I saw another tray a little farther away, and I almost started walking towards it, but I didn't want to risk it. I was too afraid I was going to be disappointed with that too. So I just turned around, went back, and waited for my wife to finish ordering her stuff, and then I got out of there. All right, so that's it. That's the end of this show. I went over a half hour. It doesn't really matter too much as long as my computer can handle it, and so far it looks like it can. This is the first episode of the Todd Cook Show, of the new Todd Cook Show, I should say. And you can look us up on Facebook, the Todd Cook Show. I got a Facebook account, of course. Who doesn't? And I'm going to post this on YouTube for sure, and it'll probably be on iTunes as well. I don't know where all you'll be able to find it, but if you're listening to this right now, I must have done something right, because you figured out how to listen to it, and that's really all that matters. But it'll be once a week for now. Probably every Monday I'll put a new show up, half-hour show once a week. So thanks so much for listening, and once again, the next episode I will give you a website of where all this music's coming from, and give them credit and everything. But for now, that's it. Show 2 will be much better than this one, I hope. That's all for now. Todd Cook Show. Bye.